We can be very keen on improving our mental health, and maybe that's even more important now than ever. There's a lot of information out there, and it can be difficult to know what to do. But here's the catch. Sometimes the very way we go about it can quietly make things worse, especially if we're doing some of the things I'm about to talk about today. Welcome back to Metacognitive Therapy Central. On this channel, I talk about why it is important to develop a more relaxed relationship to thoughts. And I share insights about how you can learn to control your mind so that you can become more psychologically resilient. Today, I'll talk about 5 tips on how you can learn to improve your mental health. So just a quick note. When I say mental health, I mean our psychological, emotional, and social well-being. Our mental health can impact our social interactions, our relationships. It can impact the decisions we make, and it can impact how we solve problems. You can think of mental health as the foundation of a house. If the foundation is solid, it can deal with storms. If the foundation is cracked, even small shakes can feel risky. So here are 5 tips to improve your mental health. The first tip to improve your mental health is to implement instead of only consuming. Do you happen to know someone who reads many self-help books a year? Maybe they even read 1 or 2 books and they can quote and tell you a lot of new stuff they've learned. But somehow, their situation remains the same. They're still struggling. One of my former clients loved to read self-help books, and he would come to our sessions and he would tell me about all these teachings that he'd learned about. What I quickly noticed was that he wasn't implementing any of the things that he was talking about. So I recommended that he would stop reading more self-help stuff until therapy was over, and instead he would implement one idea consistently over the next period of time. A couple of weeks after, his situation improved tremendously. He felt better, more calmer, and he was less confused about what to do because suddenly he didn't have all these options in front of him. So instead of just consuming, I recommend to start implementing. The second tip is to stay consistent. To be consistent with what it is that you're implementing. I am often being told that the things that I teach are too simple. It can't be true that a simple technique like this can help me overcome many years of suffering from mental illness. Which is understandable if you're someone who's been struggling with anxiety or depression or OCD. Learning that a simple thing as stepping back from negative thoughts instead of worrying about them will make that difference can be hard to believe. Yet, it is the simple thing done consistently. But the fact is, it is not the simple thing itself, it is also the simple thing applied consistently for a long period of time. It's like brushing teeth. If you want to have healthy and strong teeth, you have to brush your teeth every morning, every night, and doing that the rest of your life probably in order to maintain healthy teeth. Mental habits are not very different from physical habits like, for example, brushing teeth or continuing exercising. They have to be applied consistently in order to gain the benefits in the long term. So using a simple strategy and applying that consistently for many months is much better than doing something complex, something fancy, and only doing that once or twice. That makes logical sense. Research shows that developing habits, and in order for habits to be automated, it takes on average 66 days. For more complex stuff, it takes up to 250 days for those habits to become automatic. So applying something simple, applying a simple strategy, a simple idea, consistently over a long period of time is absolutely more helpful than applying something fancy, something complex once or twice and expecting things to be better. Third tip I'm about to explain is the key tip to improving your mental health. So if there's only one thing you take away from this video today, it should be this, and that is to reduce relying on overthinking. Many of us have learned that overthinking things is a good way to be prepared to solve problems, to understand things and reflect. However, overthinking, in terms of worrying and rumination, excessive dwelling on things, is not helpful. In fact, research has proven that overthinking, like worry and rumination, maintains mental illness. It creates emotional distress, it makes it harder to think clearly, it makes it harder to enjoy things, to sleep well. So whether you're dealing with feeling stressed, feeling tired, feeling overwhelmed, or you're having a mental illness like anxiety, depression, or OCD, reducing overthinking is going to be a tremendous help and it's going to benefit you greatly. Tip number 4 is to become comfortable with feeling negative emotions. I live in Denmark, and my experience from working with different clients and from the media, from the news, from reading books, we have an ambivalent relationship with emotions. On one hand, we like to talk about them, we like to talk about mental health and how we can solve problems like that. On the other hand, we prefer not to have negative emotions. And that view on negative emotion leads most people to have a strained relationship with feeling negative emotions. And the message is, it's not okay. There's something wrong with you if you feel very sad. There's something wrong with you if you feel anxious. There's something wrong with you if you feel angry or irritated. That makes people start using unhelpful coping behaviors to deal with these emotions instead of just letting the emotions take care of themselves. From my US and Canadian clients, I hear that there's a similar trend happening in Northern America. Somehow the message is that negative emotions need to be dealt with instead of just letting them take care of themselves. Although it is understandable that feeling negative emotions kind of suck, the downside of having this approach to always having to deal with negative emotions is that we develop a strained relationship with negative emotions. Suddenly feeling sad is not okay. That means that there's something wrong that needs to be solved, that the person feeling this sadness is a weak person or that there's something wrong with them. This in the end can lead to excessive overthinking on unhelpful coping strategies like suppression or avoidance, which can have other negative consequences like developing a mental illness. It is absolutely possible to develop a more relaxed relationship with negative emotions and be comfortable with having them. And one simple way to do that is leave the negative emotion be rather than trying to solve it or getting rid of it. And instead, just let the mind take care of the emotion. So let the emotion take care of itself. Tip number 5 is to not make mental health your primary goal. If you're struggling with your mental health, it is understandable that you're focusing on that, either because you're trying to find ways of solving it or because you're analyzing and trying to understand what's going on. So although it is understandable how mental health has become your main focus, there's a downside to constantly focusing on how you feel. And the biggest one is that it leads to over-analysis, it leads to overthinking, like worry and rumination. And worry and rumination maintain the problem and keep it going. They contribute to you feeling anxious, to you feeling depressed, instead of helping you overcome it. Now, of course, you should try to find a solution for your mental health problems, like, for example, starting therapy or going to your doctor. But in the meantime, making that your primary focus and constantly monitoring your progress and how you feel from day to day is not helpful. It maintains the problem. Let me give you an example. If you wake up feeling sad and you decide to let the sadness take care of itself, you just get up and move on with your day, eventually the sadness gets in the background. And with time, it becomes less and less important until the point where you have moved on and no longer feel sad. Compared to if you wake up feeling sad and although you try to get on with your day, you're also at the same time focusing on how sad you feel. You're analyzing the reasons why you might be feeling sad. You're trying to find solutions, you're Googling stuff, and you're constantly monitoring how you feel and whether the sadness has disappeared or not. That excessive focus keeps the sadness going, whereas in the other example of just letting the sadness take care of itself and moving on with things was a more helpful strategy. So although you're seeking help for your mental health and you're trying to fix things so that you can move on and have a better mental health in the future, you don't have to at the same time constantly monitor for your progress, and you don't have to make your mental health your primary goal. Instead, try to focus on other things in your lives that you also want to move on with. Are there certain projects? Are there certain relationships that you need to cultivate? Are there certain ideas that you need to implement? Whatever it is that you need to do in your life, maybe it's a better idea to focus on those than constantly monitoring and tracking progress with how you're feeling and whether your mental health has improved. Thanks for watching.